This is CBJ in 30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. Find out more and open an account online at telhio.org. Now here's your host, Bob McElligott.
Yesterday, the month of March came to an end, and the Blue Jackets went out like a lion, roaring to their fifth straight win when they shut out the Buffalo Sabres by the score of 4-0 on the road. Welcome to a Monday Mailbag edition of CBJ in 30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. I'm Bob McElligott. Yes, coming up in just a few minutes, I will get to all of your questions about the Blue Jackets, but first let's talk about what happened. How about this entire weekend? When the Blue Jackets won in Nashville on Saturday 5-2, then won yesterday in Buffalo 4-0. The Nashville victory was very impressive. Nashville had just been in Pittsburgh the night before, won a 3-1 game against the Penguins. They had a chance to move to the top of their division if they could get a win on Saturday, and the Blue Jackets just systematically took care of the Nashville Predators. They really did. And that's what has been going on during this streak. They have been systematically dismantling their opponents through forechecking, structured team defense, goaltending, and, of course, scoring, something that they couldn't do 2.5 weeks ago if you put all the money in the world in front of them. They couldn't do it. Now, all of a sudden, they seem to do it almost at will. But that was a great game on Saturday night to go to Nashville. You know, when you looked at the final 5 games on the schedule, let's be completely honest. The 2 toughest games that were left on paper, the one in Nashville on Saturday, the one at home tomorrow night against Boston. The other ones, Buffalo, New York Rangers, Ottawa Senators, all very winnable games. So they take care of the Nashville game and they get a win. And it turned out they really needed that win, too, because Montreal beat a Winnipeg team that didn't even show up on home ice for their game on Saturday night. So the Blue Jackets had to keep pace with the Canadiens. They stayed in a playoff spot by winning that game in Nashville. Yesterday, the Blue Jackets went into Buffalo, and I'm going to tell you something. I was very worried about that game. I was worried for a couple of reasons. Number one, it was the quintessential trap game on the schedule. Buffalo has been terrible for weeks. They had been on a 6-game losing skid coming into that game. You just think that at some point a team is going to luck its way into a win, right? And it's a trap game. If you're not going right from the beginning, if you're not ready, if you think that you can just show up and win the game, then more than likely you're going to get caught and you're going to lose. And that was very possible in that game yesterday for the Blue Jackets. The other thing I was worried about was that the Blue Jackets have had some big letdowns in that building in the past couple of years. I think last year they had a 3-goal lead that got away from them in Buffalo. If you go back to Todd Richards' final year, remember there was a day game. It was on Columbus Day in Buffalo, and the Blue Jackets lost the game. It was a very winnable game. It was early in the season, but it was a very winnable game. Buffalo wasn't very talented. It should have been a slam dunk, and it wasn't. And that's when Ryan Johansson made that famous "not everything is rainbows and unicorns" quote after the game. Well, not too long after that game, Todd Richards was no longer with the Blue Jackets, and John Tortorella came in to take over. So there have been some really ugly losses for the Blue Jackets in the last couple of years in that building. So I was worried about that. When you go somewhere where there's a history like that, in the situation where you absolutely positively need to have points, it makes me a little bit uneasy. But fortunately, the Blue Jackets didn't care about any of that. And nothing made them uneasy yesterday, is they just went out and they dismantled the Buffalo Sabres. What I thought about the Blue Jackets yesterday was this is the example of what a good team is supposed to do to a bad team. They're supposed to crush them. And that's really what they did yesterday. They just went out and they crushed the Buffalo Sabres. That game was also a game in hand, because the Blue Jackets had one more game remaining on the schedule than Montreal. And I tell you this time and time and time and time again, games in hand don't matter unless you win them. Yesterday's game mattered. It mattered big time. Now, not only are they 2 points ahead of Montreal, but thanks to Pittsburgh, which are words that don't come out of my mouth very often, thanks to Pittsburgh, who beat Carolina, the Blue Jackets now leapfrog the Hurricanes and have a 1-point lead for the number 1 wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. What's the difference? The difference is getting the Washington Capitals in round 1 or getting the Tampa Bay Lightning in round one. Now, there's still a lot of hockey to play this week. Nothing is decided. There are still 3 games left. Carolina's still playing. Montreal's still playing. The Blue Jackets still have business to take care of. But, boy, have they put themselves into a good spot. A couple of notes before I get to the mailbag today. Number 1, no surprise. No surprise whatsoever. Sergei Bobrovsky has been named the NHL's first star of the week. I would hope so. He had a couple of shutouts this week. His record for the week was 4-0. His goals against average was 1.00. His save percentage was .966. He had 2 shutouts in 4 games. He stopped 113 of 117 shots this week. That's number 1 star worthy. And Sergei Bobrovsky got it. And he absolutely deserved to get it. No doubt about that. So congratulations to Sergei. That shutout that he got yesterday, by the way, was his 9th of the year. That moves him ahead of Marc-Andre Fleury of the Vegas Golden Knights, who had led the league with 8. Bob tied him when he shut out the Islanders last week. Now he moves ahead of him with his 9th one. And the club record for shutouts in a single season is 10. Steve Mason set that record back in the 2008-2009 season. So there are 3 games left. He's playing tomorrow night. He's playing until they clinch, I'll tell you that. I would say he would play 2 out of 3 this week. Maybe if they clinch, they would consider giving him off in both games this weekend. But I think he plays against the Bruins. I think he plays against the Rangers. And then Korpisalo will finish out the year taking the obligatory assignment that he usually does in Ottawa. Seems like he plays in Ottawa quite a bit. That's my guess for the week. That's what they call an educated guess. That's what I think. And it's probably a no-brainer guess. I mean, anybody that pays any attention can figure out that that's probably the pattern. Doesn't necessarily have to be, but it is probably the pattern for the week. So Sergei, he's got 2 games left to try to tie that franchise record. If he does, that's great. If he doesn't, who cares? The way he's playing right now is helping this club to get the wins that they need. That's all that matters. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. Cam Atkinson has 41 goals now. He's tied with Rick Nash for the most goals in a single season in franchise history. Will he break it? If he does, great. If he doesn't, oh well. But now on that one, I'm going to tell you this, because he's got a better chance than Bobrovsky. I mean, Bobrovsky has 2 games to play and has to stop every single shot. You know, Cam has 3 games to play and could take numerous shots. So I want to see him break that record so bad. I do. I really do. There's no offense to Rick Nash, but let's get somebody else's name in the record books, huh? Cam Atkinson's been here for a long time. He signed a long-term contract. He committed to this team. He committed him and his family to Columbus. I hope he breaks it. I really do. I hope he snaps that record. I said the other day, I think it was on Friday, and I said it right here on this show, I think if Cam Atkinson can get to 40, he'll get to 45. He got to 40 in the first minute in Nashville, and then he got to 41 before the night was over. So he only needs 4 more to get to my prediction. 4 more in 3 games. Oh, it's very possible. As streaky as he is, it's very possible, and I hope that he gets there. So that's one bit of news and notes. Sergei Bobrovsky, the NHL's number 1 star of the week. Number 2, and I knew this one was coming, as soon as Notre Dame got eliminated from the NCAA hockey playoffs, Andrew Peeke, who was the Blue Jackets' second-round pick in 2016, defenseman out of Notre Dame, has signed a 3-year entry-level contract with the Blue Jackets. So Andrew Peeke is on his way to the organization, and you know, he had a good career at Notre Dame. In the 3 seasons he played there, 12 goals, 40 assists, 52 points, 62 penalty minutes, a plus 20 plus-minus rating, and he played in 119 games there. So he's a guy that they like, and they feel that he has promise. So Andrew Peeke is now officially in the fold after signing an entry-level contract. So there you go. That's all the news and notes that you need. And now that that's taken up about a third of the show, it is time for me to get to your questions and see what's on your mind as I open the Monday mailbag here on CBJ and 30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. As I open the mailbag, the first thing I see is a little flyer for you that came in this mailbag about Telhio Credit Union. Yeah, it talks right here about the fact that Telhio Credit Union has been putting people over profits and making sure their members have been completely taken care of since 1934. Talks about all the different services that they have, checking accounts, 3 different levels of checking accounts with different features in each account for you, savings accounts that they have. Also, you want to put your money in a CD and earn a little bit on interest right away, the lengths of the CDs, the percentage rates of the CDs. Also, personal loans. You need a loan for something, new car, some stuff around your house that you want to get done. Who knows what it might be. Springtime is coming. Maybe you have some improvements you want to make inside or outside. Well, Telhio Credit Union, they can help you. You've got to become a member. And if you wonder why you should become a member, if you wonder what it takes to become a member, if you wonder what that means to be a member and what you're responsible for, all the answers lie right online at telhio.org. Go on there, click on the tabs. Your answers will be found. And if you can't find something, just click on the live chat feature, and you'll be able to actually converse with somebody via text and get those questions answered. The other thing you can do is if you're driving around and you see a Telhio Credit Office Union, Telhio Credit Office. Yeah, I know what I did. If you see a Telhio Credit Union office, that's better. Stop by, walk inside, talk to somebody. They'll be happy to see you. They'll be happy to help you. Telhio Credit Union is open to everyone in Central and Southwestern Ohio. They're federally insured by NCUA. All right, if I can get the rest of my words straight, we'll get through this mailbag. First tweet today at Bobby Mac Sports on Twitter is from Kevin Miller. Kevin says, some fans are under the impression that John Tortorella can't coach skill, citing how he's handled players like Sonny Milano, Anthony Duclair, Oliver Bjorkstrand, etc. I'm not really sure what the statement means, but I'm asking you. To me, Kevin, the statement is stupid. It means nothing. It's an easy out. Sonny Milano, what he does or doesn't do or what he's capable of and what he achieves cannot be hung on one person except Sonny Milano. That's a fact. Say what you want to. But, you know, it comes down to it. They've worked with him. They've tried to get him to do things. It just hasn't taken to him. He hasn't taken to it. It hasn't stuck. So that's not a John Tortorella thing. Anthony Duclair, he was working with Duclair. He was making Duclair a better player. I'm going to tell you something right now. John Tortorella did not want Anthony Duclair to leave. That was just the price of doing business to get Ryan Dzingel. And Jarmo Kekalainen paid the price. It wasn't as though anybody was saying, get Anthony Duclair out of here. John Tortorella enjoyed Anthony Duclair, as did his teammates. And I'm telling you that from being on the inside. That's true. I'm not making it up. And Bjorkstrand, can't coach Bjorkstrand? He's got 21 goals now. He's got 5 goals in 4 games. I think he's doing a pretty good job. I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to tell you this without telling you a lot. And listen, just take this to heart and trust me. Just trust me on this. For the Blue Jackets just to get into the playoffs this year, this is one of the finest coaching achievements of John Tortorella's career. This is one of his finest seasons as a coach. There has been so much going on, so much noise, so much turmoil, so much distraction, and yet this team is on the verge of getting into the playoffs. They've got to do something when they get there, but the fact that they're even in this spot, look what I was talking about a week and a half ago, the conversations that I was having with you. Doom and gloom. And now it's rainbows and unicorns. Right? Don't tell me he can't coach skill. He is, listen, I said this before and I'll say it again. If you're looking for an X's and O's coach, don't look at John Tortorella. A big strategy guy, X's and O's, nail down this system, that system. It's not what he is. If you're looking for somebody that will get the most out of his players, the players that want to have the most pulled out of them, if a player doesn't want it, he can't help him. But if you're looking for somebody that will get the most out of his players, a guy that will get a player to run through a wall for him, a guy that will motivate a player and have him excited about doing what he's got to do, John Tortorella is your man. That's what he does so well, the mental aspect of it. He loves it. And he's getting a lot out of it right now. Right now. John Tortorella is a pain in the ass to his players for the beginning part of the season. It starts to change around January. And then if you're in a playoff position, then you get playoff torts, which is not banging them for what they're doing wrong all the time, but turning more into a cheerleader. He said it in his press conferences here recently. Yeah, we were there. We were cheering them on the bench. He changes. He understands. He gets it. You can't just pummel a guy with negativity and his mistakes all year long. You do it early. You get them to change their habits. And then when the going gets tough, you're with them. As he likes to say, we're with them now. We're not against them. We're with them. It's all of us. That's where his strength is. And this is one of his finest seasons as a head coach. Some of you are rolling your eyes and saying, whatever, you get along with him, you'll say whatever. I'm telling you, this has nothing to do with my relationship with him. It has nothing to do with me working for the team. This guy has done a brilliant job this year. Brilliant. Next question. Jonathan Robson says, more of a comment than a question. Doesn't it feel great to see this team performing at the level we thought they would immediately after the trade deadline? Maybe I'm getting a little bold, but how we are playing right now, I believe we can compete with anyone. Jonathan, they can compete with anyone right now. And it was just up to them to believe. Torch said this team needs something good to happen for it. The something good came in Vancouver after the worst game that they played of the year, probably, in Edmonton, the game before. The something good came, and they've done nothing but build upon it. Tim LeMay going to send me a little curveball here, and I love this. He says, the Syracuse Crunch just celebrated their 25th anniversary in the American Hockey League. What's the most memorable game that you called while there? I have two, and I'll give you the reasons. But the number one favorite is when the Crunch won 16 in a row to end the regular season. They went from being out of the playoffs to being in second place. They got They got home ice in the first round. Played against the Manitoba Moose, coached by Scott Arniel at that time, and had some good players. Corey Schneider was playing in goal on that team, and it was good. But the Crunch had they had the nasty boys, Zenon Konopka, Derek Dorsett, Tom Sestito, John Morasti. They were beating the hell out of everybody, and nobody wanted to play against them. But anyway, that series went 6 games. 4 of the 6 went to overtime. My favorite one was the last game. It was in Syracuse. Trevor Frischman, who was a third-line, fourth-line guy, scored the overtime goal to propel the Crunch past the Manitoba Moose and into the next round against the Toronto Marlies. That was my favorite game. It was just so exciting. And to have a guy like Trevor Frischman, who was, he's your prototypical bottom 9 forward where there's not a lot of glory, doesn't score a lot of goals, does a lot of dirty work, and then comes up with a huge goal at the right moment. And that was my favorite game of all time. The other one, I tweeted about this at St. Patrick's Day, the St. Paddy's Day Massacre in Wilkes-Barre, where it was the fights where the guys were taking off not only their jerseys, but their shoulder pads, their T-shirts, are out there fighting bare-chested on the ice. It was absolutely ridiculous. It was a line brawl and then some. Brad Wingfield was a tough guy. The Blue Jackets had called up from the United Hockey League at the time. He was fighting Steve Parsons. They were both bare-chested in the middle of the ice. Jason McDonald of the Penguins, he was also bare-chested. He was fighting David Ling. And then Andre Shrupko, who was a defenseman, came off the bench to fight McDonald after he had fought Ling. And McDonald actually asked Shrupko to give him a second to catch his breath, and Andre backed off and let him. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. So those are my 2 favorite games. But the playoff win is certainly the best one that I called in my time there. Jason Messick says, it seems the Blue Jackets play much better against a less active goalie, one that doesn't go behind the net to play pucks. How do they solve this going forward against someone like a Braden Holtby, who's very active in playing the puck? Well, Jason, I think you could see how they did it against Carey Price the other day against Montreal. The first time Montreal was at Nationwide Arena this year, they let Carey Price play the puck all night. He acted as a third defenseman, and it killed them. It really did. He started the transition game a lot. What they did the other night is they took away his options. In the first game, they were chasing Carey Price. They were trying to put the pressure on him. He was just passing it around them, and now you've got a guy trapped deep in the zone. What they did the other night was take away the options. They went to the walls. They took away the forwards or the defensemen that he might pass it to. So that's the key to that. Don't necessarily attack the goalie. You've got to take away the goalie's options. Because even though guys like Holtby and Price handle the puck really well, if you take away their options, then you can get them to make a mistake. If you're going to just pressure them and all they have to do is make that first pass, you're going to make it easy on them, and they're going to make it tough on you. Bears Senior says, whose game have you been impressed with the most this season, and who's your player on the other end of the spectrum, your biggest letdown? Riley Nash was my biggest letdown until the last couple of weeks, and I think he would be on a lot of people's lists because he doesn't have very many goals. But, man, the way that he has settled in on that line with Dubinsky and Foligno, which I'll talk about in another question or two here, the way he has settled in there, he's kind of gotten off my schneid a little bit. As far as the guy that I'm most impressed with overall on the season, Bobrovsky's got to be a candidate for that because there were times this season he was terrible. He lost the net to Jonas Korpisalo at one point, and now he's a first star of the week. He is golden right now. You can't take him out of there. You wouldn't even think of taking him out of there. And as he goes, so go the Blue Jackets, as with any good goalie on any team. So, yeah, I guess I'm not going to guess. And Cam Atkinson also has got to be there for 41 goals. That's been surprising to me. I know he's a streaky guy, but to get that many, it's been fun to watch. I know he's been a little bit cooled off lately here, but overall on the season, it's Atkinson-Bobrovsky combination would be it for me. Robbie Weaver says, how much will a deep playoff run for the Blue Jackets be affected by a 28th ranked power play? Can we overcome that, or will it be our Achilles heel? Actually, Robbie wrote 28th ranked special teams, but it is just the power play. The penalty kill is terrific. The penalty kill is third in the league, so that part is not a problem. But you do make a good point, Robbie. That power play will be a detriment in the playoffs. There's no doubt. If you don't get it figured out, and everything goes back to zero in the playoffs, but I still don't like how they're running it. They continue to make changes. Marty St. Louis was with the team on the trip this weekend, talking to guys. I think he's really responsible for getting somebody like Oliver Bjorkstrand going, by the way, if you want my opinion, just through talking. But they've got to get that figured out, and they've got to be able to score on the power play. The top unit, to me, looks still discombobulated. They're passing the puck a lot, but then they're shooting it into bodies. I think the second units look better because they just go straight line right to the net. But anyway, it could be an Achilles heel. Yes, it's going to be a problem if they don't get better on it. That's for sure. Craig says, that's how it's written, by the way, how come the 4 worst power plays in the NHL are all playoff teams? Is there time to turn ours around? Yeah, there's not time to turn it around in numbers before the end of the regular season, as I said earlier, but it's got to get better. And sometimes it just works that way. Teams that you think should – look, Nashville is brutal. They're 30th in the league on the power play. How could they be 30th with the talent that they have? Sometimes it just doesn't click. Gary Weinheimer, with all 3 having scored in recent games, are Cam, Bread, and PLD finally back? And with the 5-game winning streak, where have the Blue Jackets been since the trade deadline? They've been around but trying to find themselves. But now that they've found themselves, here they are. Panarin, terrific this past week. Cam busted out against Nashville the other night. And then I felt bad for Dubois because everybody else around him is getting points. And he wasn't having a big game. And he's been such a big part of this team all year to put them where they are with the work that he has done and the things he's been asked to do at only 20 years of age. And I was so happy yesterday that he got rewarded. And you know what? He got put on the bench for a while on Saturday night. And that obviously served as a wake-up call because he was playing like crazy yesterday. The old PLD, can't even say that, he's 20, but the previous version of PLD that we've seen this year returned. He has returned. Jay Alexander says, what player do you think is the biggest key to the Blue Jackets' success closing out the season and performing in the playoffs? Bob, Jones, PLD? Curious to hear your take. Okay, here it is. Bobrovsky, for sure. But his fellow Russian, Artemi Panarin. up until the Vancouver game, from the trade deadline till the Vancouver game, where was Artemi Panarin? We talked about it. I asked that question before. This guy was just not playing. He wasn't the same guy. Not even close. Looked disengaged. Looked like he wasn't trying. Just wasn't really acting as though he was a part of it. Changed in Vancouver, and you see it. When Artemi Panarin is engaged, this team is completely different. Completely. The 4-assist game the other night in Nashville, are you kidding me? He just made it look easy. So easy. That's your biggest key. Bobrovsky, for sure, honorable mention. But when Panarin plays, this is what you get. When he floats around and doesn't put his all into it, you get what we saw for the 2 weeks previous. That's the biggest key right there, that guy. And I love how he's playing right now. And I hated how he was playing then. But I love how he's playing now. They need him. He's there. And he's got to stay there for them. Let's see. Rennet says, Elvis Merzlikins has arrived in Columbus. Came in last night. What are the plans for him for the rest of the season or maybe even the playoffs? Also, do you have updates on Murray? No update on Ryan Murray. Zero. Sorry. Merzlikins, you won't see him. He's not going to practice with the team. He's not going to play in games. He's going to work with Manny Legacy, doing extra work. That's it. So, zero plans for Elvis and no report on Murray. I'm sorry. It's a very boring answer, but it's the true answer. That's all I can give you. Let's see. Mark Carell II. I don't know if there's a right time to get hot, but something tells me 2 weeks before the end of the season is a pretty good time compared to mid-January. Do you hold any credence to peaking timelines? And also, there used to be radio tandems for hockey. Do you prefer going alone, or do you like a color analyst to communicate with and help paint the picture? I like a color analyst in a game that is very slow and boring and the ones you're really getting beat in, because then that gives me somebody else to talk to and keep me from going out of my mind. I always think it's better to have an analyst. I would enjoy having a conversation with someone other than myself. I've become very good at conversing with myself over my career, but I'll paint the picture. But they can accentuate the picture. But anyway, it is what it is, and I still have a great time doing it. And you want to have the right guy, too. If you were to get that situation, you really want to have the right person so that there's a mesh. And sometimes that's that takes a little bit, too, to find some chemistry. But anyway, back to your other question. The peaking, do I put any credence in that? Yeah, listen, if you're playing your best going into the playoffs, I think that's a good thing. I think, yeah. Hey, the Buffalo Sabres peaked in November. How's that work for them? Terrible. Tyler Ratterer. Which player do you think is the most vital to the hot streak for the Blue Jackets, the one that they're on, and why? For example, Cam's goal-scoring record season, Bjorkstrand's goal-per-game streak, Bob's big games, and shutouts. Well, I told you it's Panarin. But Bjorkstrand and the rate he's scoring at right now here during this winning streak, that should not be overlooked. But this team goes as far as Bobrovsky and Panarin take them, in my opinion. Next, Jay Fetter. I have to know, what are your thoughts on Nashville's post-goal chants? Personally, I find them childish. You suck is the best they could come up with. Listen, it's minor league. I like it. I mean, it's still involved. It's not prim and proper. It is probably politically incorrect, which I love. And what are the post-goal chants in Columbus? Anybody? Anybody? Anything? Zero? So at least they have something. But it goes back to the days when they were in the East Coast Hockey League, when they were the Nashville Knights, I think, something like that. That's where it comes from, and that is carried over to the NHL level, so I don't have any problem with it whatsoever. Kyle Rose says, Bob, love the show. The fourth line of Nash, Dubinsky, and Foligno seems to have this team gelling at the perfect time. You have to keep that line together for the rest of the way, right? Yeah, you're right, Kyle. No taking that line apart. It's terrible that Nick Foligno had to miss that 9-day road trip, but just imagine, because he missed and because Wenberg and Bjorkstrand started to play well with Jenner, that left Foligno the odd man out, and the only spot left was to play with Dubinsky and Nash. And if John Tortorella wouldn't have done that, we wouldn't have a dominating fourth line right now that is dictating the way the game is going to be played. So I am so glad that Nick's son is out of the hospital and he is back home, and I hate that he had to go through that. But it's funny how life works sometimes, because I don't know if he would have ever been put on that line had that entire situation not occurred. And it did, and everybody is healthy from it, and Nick Foligno has found a great line. And John Tortorella looks like a genius. So you got to keep them together the rest of the way. Final question, Nicholas Fennell. If Ryan Murray isn't able to recover by the playoffs, which is extremely likely, do you see any call-ups like Gabriel Carlson a few years ago, maybe Andrew Peeke? Thanks for being a vessel of quality hockey talk all year. It brightens my day. Well, thank you, Nicholas. I appreciate that. Adam Clendenning has been here. So he is, when you talk about the playoffs, you know, he's a guy that has been back and forth, American Hockey League, National Hockey League. I would expect that he would get that opportunity. Cleveland, if Cleveland gets into the playoffs, I don't know how many of those guys they're going to bring up, because they're going to want to win down there too. So I'm not sure exactly how that would go. But yes, they're going to bring up guys. There will be guys here as insurance policies. How many is dependent upon Cleveland making the playoffs or missing the playoffs. It's as simple as that. But Clendenning, I don't know what Carlson's game has been like here the last couple of weeks. He played in the playoffs a couple of years ago, but we haven't seen hide nor hair of him for a long, long time. So I'm not sure where he's at with his game. Andrew Peeke, that would be a man to come right out of college and throw you into the Stanley Cup playoffs. I don't see it, but I guess you never know. The best thing is, the best case scenario is that Adam McQuaid is not going to be out for a really long time. They need Adam McQuaid. And I know what you're thinking. 2 games after the trade deadline, you thought you would never hear that sentence. They need Adam McQuaid. What he brings in both his character and his play, they need him in the playoffs. So if you got Ryan Murray, oh my God, what a blessing that would be. But my focus is on number 54 getting back into the lineup before number 27. As I said, if 27 came back, it would be a godsend. But 54 needs to get back. They need to get him back. Now, he needs to be healthy, for sure. And I hope that he will be very soon. That's going to do it for today's Monday Mailbag edition of CBJ and 30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. Oh, such a happier one than the one 2 weeks ago. Even happier than last week, because it was only one win in Vancouver that we were talking about. There was still more negative than positive. Now there's more positive than negative, and it's so fun. 3 games left on the schedule. At home against Boston tomorrow, in New York against the Rangers Friday, in Ottawa against the Senators on Saturday. That's it. The magic number is 4. Any combination of Blue Jackets getting 2 points and Montreal losing out on 2 points, Blue Jackets are in. So if they win tomorrow and Montreal loses, they're in. And then you worry about the seeding and how you're going to wind up playing Washington instead of Tampa. That's going to be the interesting part of it all, is it not? I'll get into much more of that tomorrow when I do a game day edition of this show, when the Bruins are here. The Bruins lost in Detroit last night. They're going to be pissed, and the Blue Jackets have just got to deal with it. They played them well this year, and now they're playing even better than the first 2 times they faced them. So I think it's going to be a very interesting game and fun to watch. But again, that's going to do it for today's show. I even went overtime. I gave you bonus time today. Aren't I nice? Bonus time. By the way, here's a little tease for you. I didn't even pull an April Fool's joke on you today, which I thought about doing, but I decided, screw it. The older I get, I start to have to think too much, so screw it. But listen to this. For the playoffs, we're talking about doing something different with this show. Different in a good way, not different in a bad way. And when I have details, which I am trying so hard to get, I'm desperately trying to get details. But when I have them, you'll be the first to know. I promise. You know why? Because you're there day in and day out, and I love you for it. Thanks again for the great questions today. Tomorrow, the Bruins are here. The Blue Jackets will put their 5-game winning streak on the line. And until then, I'm Bob McElligott saying so long.